welcome to you all to this event of the European Food Forum, Animal Protein, a key element for nutritional balance and health in Europe. First, a word from myself. So I'm the moderator of today, hoping to guide you through this event. I am the Secretary General of FIFAC, which is the European Compound Feed Manufacturers Association. Animal feed, key part of the livestock value chain. We're also a member of the EBAF, European Board of the Agriculture and Food. So these topics discussed today go very close to where we stand. Personally, I've been involved with the topic of sustainability already for numerous years now. But I, as a moderator, will try to be as absent as I can. I know we have quite a tight schedule, so I'll try to get us through this as quickly as possible. A quick introduction to this event. We actually have 2 panel sessions coming up. One on more dedicated to the sustainability of livestock farming, also on animal welfare, and then a second panel session on animal protein within the context of human nutrition. I hope we can look forward today to balanced perspectives, science-based approaches, and an informed and structured dialogue. I understand this is also very much the spirit of the European Food Forum. So it's an independent, politically led, non-partisan, multi-stakeholder forum founded and governed by elected members of the European Parliament. I want to also make reference to an intergroup that exists in the European Parliament on sustainable livestock. So if we run out of time, then please, we can continue this on another day. I would like to then first hand over to our Singer for an opening statement, and then I take it back.
Yes. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to welcome you today to the European Parliament for this important discussion on animal protein, a key element of nutritional balance in health in Europe. Together with my colleague Stefan Köhler and the European Food Forum, we wanted to create a space where we can move beyond simplified or polarized narratives. Too often, the debate about protein is reduced to either or between animal or plant-based. Yet, as we all know, human nutrition is more complex. Animal protein plays a fundamental role in providing high-quality nutrition. Amino acids, vitamin B12, iron, and essential fatty acids, nutrients which are crucial from children, for older adults, and indeed for all of us. At the same time, sustainability, climate responsibility, and animal welfare are key concerns for our societies and for our farmers. Across Europe, the livestock sector has made important progress. Innovations in feed, husbandry, and animal health show that animal production and environmental responsibility can go hand in hand. This event is about truth and balance. Recognizing the complementary role of animal and plant proteins, supporting consumer choice, and ensuring that policy supports both sustainability and health. I am very much looking forward to hearing from our experts today and to a constructive discussion. Thanks for joining us. And now I give back to Anton von der Bank. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just to remind you, indeed, Frau Singer is one of the hosts of this event today, also MEP Stefan Köhler. So we hope he can still make it. He has a vote within the Comagri, but hope he can make it before the end. But with that, I would like to start the first panel session. So I'm going to go over to the first speaker. And for those who provided the bios, I have needed to condense it a bit to make it all a bit more palatable. But the first speaker of today will be Brigitte Misson, Acting Director for Markets, Head of Unit for Agricultural Products in DG Agri, European Commission. She has the overall responsibility for monitoring agricultural market developments, analyzing economic trends, building up market knowledge, and designing EU market support measures in agricultural sectors, as well as keeping EU market policy fit for purpose. She has an enabling role in the livestock work stream to provide a diagnosis for the sector's challenges, which includes also climate and environmental footprint. So you have quite a task. Madame Misson, the floor is yours.
Many thanks for this short introduction. So this saves me to do it myself. And I'm extremely honored to be on this panel this afternoon, and I expect a nice, fruitful, direct, open dialogue around this very important topic. As I'm sure everybody around this table would agree with, ensuring a competitive, resilient, and sustainable livestock sector for the generations to come is of key importance for Europe. Livestock is and will remain, there is no doubt about that, an essential pillar of EU agriculture. Why? Because it's fundamental for food security, for the economic and social vitality of rural areas, and for the preservation of Europe's landscapes and cultural heritage. The livestock system of the next generation will not be exactly the same as the one we know today, for sure. It will be shaped by new technologies, by evolving societal expectations, and of course, by the urgent realities of climate and environment. Our task is not simply to react to these changes. Our task is to actively design a diverse, depending on the territory, resilient and competitive farming system fit for the future. The main question today for our event, I would say, is how animal protein can align with environmental and climate goals. So let me outline 3 avenues. The first one, driving circularity and resource efficiency. Livestock farming can significantly contribute to the circular economy by upcycling biomass, agricultural byproducts, food waste, and fit for human consumption, into high-value protein and organic fertilizers. This reduces waste, minimizes reliance on synthetic inputs, and helps restore soil health, enhancing carbon sequestration in grasslands and croplands. Second avenue, promoting biodiversity and landscape management. Well-managed grazing systems are vital for maintaining diverse ecosystems, preventing wildfires, we've seen them a lot over the summer, and preserving iconic European cultural landscapes. By supporting biodiversity and ecological balance, livestock can help maintain natural carbon sinks and mitigate the impact of climate change, turning agricultural lands into more resilient and vibrant environments. Third avenue, adopting innovative greenhouse gas reduction technologies. The sector is increasingly implementing innovations such as advanced feed additives, those reducing enteric methane emissions, for instance, improved manure management systems, anaerobic digestion for biogas production, for instance, and precision farming techniques. These advancements directly lower the carbon footprint of animal protein production, aligning it more closely with our ambitious climate neutrality targets. So to progress on those ideas, these 3 avenues that I've just outlined, but any other good idea as well, the Commission has launched the so-called livestock workstream. This isn't just another exercise of political visibility, no. It's our primary vehicle for developing a shared, long-term, positive vision for the sector. This workstream is founded on a deep respect for the rich diversity of livestock production across the Union. From extensive grazing systems that maintain high-value nature farmland to innovative indoor farms, pioneering circularity. We know there is no one-size-fits-all model. Our goal is to create a framework that fosters excellence through targeted territorial solutions. Some examples of that. I'm not sure that I still have time.
Yeah,
No, I should not.
It's
Okay.
5 minutes for everybody. Yeah.
Okay, so let's not give examples, but let me then finish my introduction by stating that the most important in this livestock workstream that we have launched is cooperating, having everybody around the table, looking at all ideas, at all positions, and making the best emerge for the future of the sector. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being conscious of the time. I think it's a sin for a moderator to cut short somebody on the commission. So happy you did the job. I think also great setting the scene actually for everybody here, and a clear there's room for proposing solutions. So it's also maybe for industry actors to take that room and propose the technical solution that they can. I would like to move to the next speaker. I believe he's connected online. So it's Arjan Stegeman, and he is professor of farm animal health at Utrecht University in the Netherlands, trained as a veterinarian epidemiologist. He is also a specialist in population health. Research of his focuses on epidemiology of infectious disease in farm animals with the aim of unraveling the mechanisms that drive transmission and spread within animal populations. And also a strong advocate of planetary health, and thereby also making the connection to healthy animals. Arjan, if you want to move to the next slide, you just have to say so and it will happen. The floor is yours. If you're on mute, we cannot hear you. We don't hear anything now.
Because I needed to unmute myself, which the system says. I'm really sorry.
Loud and clear.
I cannot be there with you because my morning program did not allow me to arrive timely in Brussels. But I'm really happy to show you this first picture. This shows you the campus of Utrecht. No, I mean the previous one. You're now going too quickly. Which shows you the campus of my university at Utrecht with peaceful sheep in front of tall buildings, and I think this nicely shows the message of my talk. Animal-friendly livestock farming must find its place within a modern society. This connects directly to today's talk, the future of livestock farming, and how animals' health, humans, and the planetary health are deeply interconnected. So this message of my talk is simply healthy animals on a healthy planet. Next slide, please. Well, this shows you that animal proteins really play a pivotal role in human consumption. With to the left, you see the rising consumption of animal-sourced proteins, which goes in line with the rising prosperity of the planet. But the way we currently produce, it comes also with a high cost. Global livestock farming contributes significantly to pollution. It erodes biodiversity, and at the same time, and that's particularly my field of work, it causes the emergence of devastating animal diseases. To the right, you see the global spread of highly pathogenic avian influenza. What started as a poultry-borne virus somewhere in China has now a global distribution, killing hundreds of millions of birds and also posing threats to humans. And this is not an isolated case. African swine fever has shown similar devastating effects. And if we look at the European situation alone, also even this year, we were struck by recent outbreaks of foot and mouth disease, peste petit ruminant, sheep and goat pox, and lumpy skin disease. And these are reminders how vulnerable our system has become. So the challenge before us is clear. How do we balance nutrition, health, and sustainability? Next slide, please. Because these crises are not accidents, they are the outcome of systemic drivers, which in first have the rapid growth of the livestock population. I find always this picture astonishing to the right, where you see relatively projected the biomass, so the total biomass on Earth of mammals to the left, which shows you 60% is actually livestock, 36% humans, and only 4% is still wild mammals in this case. And for birds, it's similar, where 70% of all the avian species are actually poultry, showing the huge imbalance of this system. And this is further strengthened by changes in land use, which make it more possible for new microbes and microorganisms to emerge, and the movements of animals, products, and people that we have across the panel or the planet then make these new pathogens also distribute quickly across the world, resulting in patterns like you've seen for the avian influenza. And this is also further strengthened by climate change, which also makes the spectrum of pathogens more widely, because all kinds of vector-borne diseases are now also more likely to enter. So next slide, please. So what can we do to counter this? Well, traditionally, and that's shown in this picture, we have a tendency to address this with end-of-pipe solutions, like here what you see culling of a poultry farm, biosecurity measures, vaccination. But in the end, I call these end-of-pipe solutions because they do not address the root causes of this problem. And to do so, because of course I agree that these measures are needed, but they are not sufficient. We need a broader perspective, and that is where the concept of planetary health comes in, shown to the right of this picture, which actually combines the One Health principle, which is, I think, more familiar, the One Welfare principle, ensuring that animal well-being is okay, and also circular agriculture, which was also propagated by the previous speaker. And this all together, they point us towards a sustainable farming system and moreover also healthier diets. So this is not just about preventing the next outbreak, it is also redesigning the food system itself, which brings me to my final slide. So what does this future look like? Livestock farming is in the future, I think, a more regional business, animal friendly. It's adjusted to the local ecological conditions and therefore less dependent on long distance animal transports, which are also bad for animal welfare. The systems protect the biodiversity, and in that sense, they also reduce the risk of major disease outbreaks, and they are broadly accepted by society. At the same time, these systems promote healthier diets and respond to what citizens increasingly expect from the agriculture. This transition is urgent, but it's also an opportunity, I think. Europe has the knowledge, the innovation, and the public support to lead the way towards livestock farming that is resilient, animal-friendly, and climate-conscious. Together, we can turn this vision on the first slide of healthier animals on a healthy planet into reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Steegman. Clear call for systemic change and systemic improvements. I'm going to go to the next speaker, who is also online. So if I pronounce it well, Elisabetta Quaini. I'm going to pronounce Quaini. So owner and CEO of Barbicelle Società Agricola de Quaini Paoli Figlie. So it's a family-owned business. Leading dairy farm specializing in Italian Holstein breeding and milk production. She holds various degrees: economics, agri-food system, economics, agribusiness, extensive experience in the agribusiness, and founder and president of Fristali, and also member of Confa Agricoltura. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you to having me. And as you told, I am a dairy farmer from the Po Valley, the main agricultural area in Italy. I'm also a member of European Dairy Farmer, an organization that reunite farmers from all over Europe. So I see what's going on also in other countries. And I'm here today not to give you many figures, but just to represent and focusing on animal-related issues, the things that I know very well. You all agree with me that healthy animals are producing good food. And also, I hope you will agree with me that caring animal farmers providing proteins must be socially accepted. And this is a very important concept for me to give you. I'm involved in the dairy sector and farming since almost 30 years. So I must tell you, I saw great changes and also improvements in the way we breed animals in the European community. And bringing my personal experience in my farm in the last 3 years, we reduce antibiotics around 80% on calves. And in the last 5 years, we reduced almost 50% of antibiotics used to dry cows. And I must tell you, the 3 main areas that we use antibiotics is on calves, for drying cows, and for treat mastitis. So this is a really big and good results. But I must tell you how we make it. We were able to improve animal welfare, and this is a very important topic. Animal welfare in practice means that most farmers built comfortable barns. We add ventilation systems to reduce heat stress, and I suggest these to apply also in northern countries, because Italy is a very hot country, so we are very good in this. We learn from Israel that is a very hot country too, and this system is working very well. And then we improve the cleaning procedures to reduce diseases and mastitis. And we apply a lot of vaccinations. And this is very important to use them to keep our cattle healthy. And then we use health sensors. Now, I must say, we are able to measure the health condition of each animal every day, every minute. So it's a big help for the farmers. Just to give you an example, we measure activity, suction speed, breathing rhythm with a simple ear sensor applied to calves. And then the automatic feeder give us data like the number and quantity of milk servings of our calves, the suction speed, and the calf's weight. So we are able to check all this data every day. And all this information are provided to farmers in terms of a health index on our phones, because we have an application that give you on your phone all this information. And the result in terms of economic sustainability is a drop in the calf mortality rate. For example, in my farm, we reach less than 2% mortality. So this is an example how sustainable can we become, I mean, to the environment, to the acceptability, and also from the economic point of view. Because if you, there are many professors, they can confirm that now to have a pregnant heifers ready to calve, it will cost more than 3,000 euro. So we are talking about a lot of investment, a lot of money. And moreover, with the last generation milking robots and parlor, we can measure milk production, milk temperature, somatic cells count, that are the symptom of diseases in the cows, rumination, rest time, fat and protein contents in milk. And then an algorithm calculates the cow health condition, providing a list of health alarm. So we are able to prevent or treat diseases with the help of our vets. So then, just a glance, we have a good help coming from genetic improvement that is providing to the farmer healthier and more efficient cows in terms of production and less feed intake and environmentally conscious cows, I must say. So this is another important success. For example, we are doing DNA testing on all the animals, so we are able to select the best and less impact cows for the environment. And I go toward the conclusion to say that our milk is paid mainly for casein in Italy because we process and we produce one of the most important cheeses all over the world, like Grana Padano and Parmigiano Reggiano. So the other aim is to maximize casein production in our milk. And I must say I have short time to talk about also feed efficiency, less emission, water saving methods, chemical fertilizer reduction, and efficient manure management, and also green energy production with biogas. This is circular economy, and we are doing all these things. In conclusion, I want to underline the great effort of all European farmers that every day are committed to provide to consumer proteins, respecting our animal, and also a great number of regulation. And this is my conclusion. We are happy to respect all this regulation, but when we have to be grateful to all farmers working every day. So the model can change and we will adapt to the new regulation. But with all my speech, I want to underline that we are producing good protein to the world. Thank you very much.
Grazie mille. Thank you very much. So yeah, thank you so much for the practical insights directly from the farm level, but also implementation of innovative technology and data use. Before moving to the next speaker, just want to welcome also MEP Stefan Köhler. Hope the vote went well. We'll hear later. Okay. We're going to move on with the program. Next speaker, Dr. Wart Mosmuller, sitting right across from me here. So trained at Wageningen University as a molecular scientist, PhD in bioorganic chemistry. Wart joined DSM in 2009, has held strategic corporate positions related to innovation, sustainability, and advocacy within DSM, broad range of international fora where he's represented the company, and since very recently has engaged on the sustainable venture of Bovaer. So I leave the floor to you to explain more about that.
Otherwise, I do it without. No slides?
I'm looking at, do we have slides? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you, Frau Singer and Herr Köhler for this important initiative and for having me on the panel. Appreciate it. I will be focusing on emissions or emission reductions. And I hope to show you that farmers play a vital role in reducing the footprint of milk and meat proteins. I will give you some context, some numbers, a few solutions, hopefully, and I will briefly touch upon a few programs or projects that are running in Europe where these technologies are applied. Next slide, please. So the big picture is that about 10 to 50% of human-induced greenhouse gases originate from livestock, and about 61% is coming from beef and milk production. Next one. These 60% are mainly brought upon us by methane. And methane is a very potent greenhouse gas. On a time scale of 100 years, it's comparable to 27 carbon dioxide molecules. But when you look on a time scale of 20 years, methane traps 80 times more heat than CO2 does. So actually, methane is 80 times more harmful than CO2 on the short run, and therefore it makes perfect sense to reduce these emissions. And thank God there are quite some tools available. I will mention here and there a few, but I will give you the example that DSM developed, and I'll show that through the next slide. So cows just emit methane. They can't help it. It's just due to digestion of their feed. We developed Bovaer. Bovaer reduces methane emissions by about 30%. In dairy cows and meat cows, it's even higher, 45%. And this feed supplement, by the way, approved by the European Union, does not require any investments. What does it do then? Please click again. When cows are fed Bovaer, the footprint of milk goes down by 15%. When you look at the cow, a cow will emit 1 ton CO2 equivalents less per year. Well, what is a ton? I have a comparison on the bottom left. 3 cows fed with Bovaer for a full year compensate the emissions of a family car per year. So that's quite substantial. And there are other examples out there. I want to show you a few, let's say, initiatives from private parties and also from public parties. Next slide, please. So dairy farms are taking some responsibility there. Arla has the Farm Ahead program. Bell has the Mon Bébé Lait program. Friesland calls this program Focus Planet. And in the Netherlands, Vreugdehill and Nestlé collaborate in a program that they call Tomorrow's Dairy. What these programs all have in common is that the farmers are stimulated to use different methodologies or different measures to reduce the footprint of their farm, so in general, and they are compensated for using these measures. And on top of that, they are compensated for the fact that the reduction, so the full footprint of the farm goes down. There are also multi-stakeholder international programs like Future for Dairy initiative, where Arla, together with Danone, DSM, Firmenich, Friesland Campina and Rabobank collaborate, and that is an open forum, and we invite more and more people in there. But that's the private side of the story. So there are already quite some initiatives where emission reductions on the farm and the footprint of the farm are key elements. Now to some public examples. Next slide, please. The most elaborate one comes from Denmark, where all 450 dairy cows are required to lower their footprint, so to say. In Flanders, you have a voluntary program, a bit smaller, and even in Slovenia, there is a program, and I understood that also Norway will implement a similar program as in Denmark. And now I want to address you, Ms. Singran and Mr. Köhler, because I really hope that EU will stick to its climate targets and that we keep setting an example for the world. And innovation is a very important aspect of that. Please, next. Climate innovation requires, in this area, collaboration of all value chain players. That's quite important. So what I would like you to keep on doing as members of parliament and also of people from the European Commission, next please, is put pressure on us on the value chain and appreciate the fact that farmers are applying already measures to reduce the footprint of their farms. I think that's quite important to make sure that we all understand that reducing the footprint of our food is a collective thing. It's not just for the farm to apply. All the value chain players have a role to play. I will do that in my role with Bovaer, and I hope the other players in this value chain will do that as well. And I hope in the end that European Parliament and that the members of the European Commission will do the same. And actually, I think we count on you when it comes to reducing the footprint of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bart, for the clear challenge and the key pressure point in cattle farming is the methane. And as Bart said, we cannot put the responsibility only on the cattle farmers. It's a shared effort. Both market and public support can really help here. I want to move us to the next speaker, even though we're doing quite well for time. I think we might even have time for Q&A afterwards, so get ready. I'm going to move to Inés Ayuda. So, veterinary professional and advocate for farm animal welfare, holds an integrated master's degree in veterinary medicines, currently serving as the farm animal welfare program leader at Eurogroup for Animals, and previously also worked as research manager at the European Food Business Engagement at Compassion in World Farming. Inés, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I also have slides, but I can start speaking in interest of time. So first thing to say, thank you so much for inviting me to speak and for our member Compassion World Farming to facilitate that. And because it's important also in these discussions, we talk about livestock, but we are actually talking about sentient beings and animals. And our role here sometimes is also to remind ourselves a bit about this and the role of animal welfare when we are discussing about new solutions, so where to take the production of animals in the EU to the next level, and so on. And usually I start with this slide. It comes with me from many years now. I'm talking on animal welfare. There are several ways to define it. But the main point is, and also as a vet, I heard this a lot of times, that animals, if they're healthy and they're producing, then the animal welfare is okay. But actually, there are more layers to this definition on animal welfare. So also is it not? Sorry, thank you. No, oh, because of the camera, right? Thanks. Oh no, I see myself. So, so apart from the physical well-being, we also have to think about their mental well-being and the ability to express either natural or normal behavior, however we want to define it. But the truth is, when thinking about measures, such as technological measures, but also when working with farmers to improve welfare, we have to keep this in mind as well. As according to the treaties of the EU, but also in terms of science, these animals are sentient, which means that they can feel and process positive and negative stimuli. So we have to take this into consideration when discussing what's the future of the livestock production in the EU. Next slide, please. So in terms of looking at animal welfare as one of the drivers of sustainability, I'm sure a lot of you have been in heated debates about win-lose situations and how animal welfare can be lost sometimes in terms of environmental impact or social impact or economic impact. But the truth is, when looking on, at things like measuring them well and looking at the rounded perspective on animal production, animal welfare is usually a win-win situation in these 3 points. In terms of environmental impact, and I was very happy that we had a dairy farmer. It made me miss a bit when I was practicing as a vet, listening to her. But it's true that improving health, but also improving welfare can help the environmental impact. Healthy animals are better. But also the fact that, for example, having a more resilient breed that allows us to give the different types of feed to animals can also help us to improve the environmental impact and also be closer to what, as was defined by other speakers, being more close to biodiversity and also reducing the impact of the animal production. At the same time, of course, economic strength is a very important point here, and animal welfare can be part of that story in the sense of improving the economy of the farm and on the part of health and reducing mortality, for example, but also placing the farmers in a better place in the market at the EU level, but also at the global level, increasing their competitiveness. And finally, in terms of social resilience, it's very important to discuss this. And we heard already that we have societal expectations around animal production. And of course, higher animal welfare is at the forefront of those societal expectations. And we've seen that, for example, on European Citizens Initiative, you hear on petitions, also adoption of certain labels and the uptake of consumers in entire supply chains, such as, for example, what's happening in the Netherlands, with higher welfare chicken production. Next slide, please. And final one, to keep on time, looking at Anton. So looking more and zooming in at what can we do here in Brussels and what can we engage and integrate better, and when thinking about the future of livestock production. There's an upcoming file that is already ongoing and has a public consultation now open, which is looking at the animal welfare legislation. And this should be a fundamental part when we're thinking about livestock production, because as we heard Elizabeth, the farmer, speaking today, there's a lot of improvements that farmers can do on farm. But this should be done with the EU level guidance, so farmers know exactly where to invest and how to invest and increase their competitiveness this way. So the decisions are made right, the investments are made on the right places, and higher welfare is then facilitated in an harmonized way across the EU, creating a level playing field. And finally, also, and we heard a bit about that, unblocking support to farmers, because if there is guidance harmonized across the EU, it's also easier to detect how and where the gaps are in terms of need of investment to improve the systems. And this way, we can improve animal welfare, but also increase the competitiveness, but also the sustainability of animal production in the EU. So it's a file that needs to be integrated. It's from a different department than what we have represented here today, or a different DG, but it still needs to be integrated in discussions and kept in mind whilst deciding what's the future of the animal production in the EU. Thank you, Anton.
Thank you, Ines, for also being such a well-disciplined speaker, all sticking very nicely to the time. And I think also a message that very much resonates with the livestock sector. The economic strength needs to be part of it, competitiveness, before you can make movements in those kind of directions. Then we go to the sixth and final speaker of the first session, Els Bruggeman. So Group Manager Policy, Enforcement and Communication at Euroconsumers, which is a global consumer group that gathers 5 national consumer organizations from Belgium, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Brazil. And Els joined the consumer movement in 2014 when she started working as an EU public affairs advisor for the Belgian consumer organization. She has a master's degree in both history and law and advanced masters in international politics and conflict and development studies, and also a member of the executive board of BEUC. So the floor is yours, Els.
Thank you. I also have a couple of slides, but I can already start. Let me first start by saying thank you for inviting Euroconsumers to this table. As you said, as a global group of 5 membership-based organizations, we have a bit of an idea of what is on consumers' mind, and we really appreciate the opportunity to bring also their voice to this table. I would like to start with a bit of a confession. I'm not only here as a consumer representative, I'm also a food lover. I just love eating. I love discovering different cuisines, and I love the cultural tradition of eating together. So you will see from me or from my organization, you won't see any finger pointing at people who want to eat meat from time to time. Having that said, I think there's no denying that animal proteins, they also come with a significant environmental impact. And that's also something that consumers care about. And they want to have the right tools in hand to do their bit. In fact, when we polled consumers right before the European elections and asked them about their wish list for the next mandate for this commission, having access to affordable, sustainable food came in second, right after affordable medicines. So as Euroconsumers, that is what we will do. We will empower consumers with affordable, sustainable food choices. And I have to say, it's exciting to see and to hear what kind of efforts have already been taken to make breeding livestock more sustainable. But the environmental impact is huge, and I think nobody will deny this. And the way out is probably a combination of many solutions. So we simply cannot put all of our eggs in the same basket. So when you talk eating more sustainable and you talk to consumers about it, of course, immediately it's about diversifying your diet and replacing some of the animal proteins with vegetables and beans. And this is also the first message that we give to consumers. However, I want to throw in another option. We like to be a bit thought-provoking. It's not meat, it's not vegetables, it's a third way. When we're talking about making animal protein more sustainable, you immediately think of livestock. rightfully so. But there's also such a thing as cultured meat, cultivated meat. So real meat that was grown in from animal cells in controlled conditions without needing to slaughter animals. It's good for the planet. It's good for animal welfare. It offers some opportunities to cut back on some health threats. And it's also good for European food resilience. And I can hear or see some of you already thinking, and believe me, in the beginning, I was one of them. I can see you thinking, have they gone completely bonkers? Will consumers actually buy it? Will they ever buy it? So what we do at Euroconsumers, we ask them. And that's why I wanted to share some interesting numbers with you. Overall, our European consumers are still very much omnivorous. 94% of us eats meat at least once a week. But 60% of us has already tried to cut back on their meat take or is planning to do so. And half of consumers really believe that in 10 years' time, cutting back meat will be more mainstream. But you also have a strong 41% that has no intention to do so because they like the taste of it, they like the tradition of it, they don't think it will have any impact, or they don't have access to good alternatives, or they're just too expensive. But here's where it becomes interesting. And maybe that's the next slide. Sorry. Here's where it becomes interesting. Even among these hardcore no-sayers, 43% of them is willing to consider eating cultured meat. And for us, this really shows the huge potential of this most meat-like variation of novel foods as an extra option to be offered to consumers on their plate. That is under their conditions. And that's the next slide, because it's not that consumer will just buy it like that. No, our survey found that they have put forward some great and interesting criteria. It needs to be safe, it needs to taste the same, it cannot be more expensive, and there needs to be a lot of transparency on the information, on the nutritional value, transparency and good communication. So these are the conditions putting forward by consumers. And I understand this might sound as evil or even a declaration of war to traditional farming. So let me please take this opportunity to make something very clear. Farmers are the backbone of our European food system and rural communities. And make no mistake, there will always be a place for traditional meat, even if it needs to become more sustainable. So cultured meat is not here to compete, it's here to complete, just to be offered as an extra option to consumers to make more sustainable food choices next to the more traditional agriculture and the traditional meat, and next to eating more vegetables and beans. It's here to complete, not to compete, and maybe even also to reinforce. Because another interesting finding from our survey is then when it comes to the safety of cultured meat, consumers trust farmers way more than private entities or even the government, which really shows the potential of it. Maybe there's an opportunity to combine, breeding livestock in a traditional way with breeding cultured meat, because in the end, also cultured meat starts from animal cells. So to wrap up, I want to emphasize again, we're here to complete and not to compete. As Euroconsumers, it is our job to offer affordable, sustainable food choices to consumers. And we believe that this win-win situation at least needs to be considered on consumers' plates. And I leave it here.
Thank you so much. So I'm impressed by those statistics that consumers would be so interested in cultured meat. But I think it is a fact, though, indeed, if you look at rising demand for protein in general, animal protein, it is also as a livestock sector, we shouldn't aspire to be feeding the world with all animal protein. So it's to put things in balance and in perspective. We're doing quite well on time, 23. So we have a good, I would say, at least 10 minutes to have a bit of a Q&A going. So I would very much like to invite people to to raise a question if they would like. Please, no long stories. If you have a question, indeed, just first introduce yourself and maybe address the person you want to raise the question to. I give anybody the floor. Oh, we're doing all this trouble for nothing to save time to have a Q&A session. Otherwise, I will. There we go. Sure, I was looking past you. Sorry.
Ja, vielen Dank. Ich werde Deutsch sprechen. Mich würde interessieren, sorry.
Interpretation available.
Okay. Yes, I have a question to Els Bruggemann. Was sind die Grundstoffe für Cultural Meat und wie hoch ist der Energieaufwand bei der Produktion? Das würde mich tatsächlich interessieren.
Sorry, I didn't catch the translation, but I'm Dutch speaking, so I could deduct a little bit. Well, I would invite you to, if you want, I can share the full position paper with us, okay. With you. It's all the details are in there. Indeed, also breeding cultured meat, it needs to start from animal cells. That's why I was saying it can be very complementary with what the farmers are already doing. Now, the technical explanation is fully written in the document by our experts. I don't know it by heart, but I know what you will see in the position paper, we make a comparison between breeding chicken, pigs, cows traditionally, and then via cultured meat. And it includes also the energy intake. And in almost all of the scenarios, it came out as more sustainable. Only, if I remember well, with chickens, it's more or less the same. But for all other animal types, the cultured variety comes out as the more sustainable, the more ecological one. It's a pity I don't have the graph with me because there's a good graph in there that makes a comparison. And it includes also the indication of the energy intake. I don't know the numbers by heart. Apologies.
Okay. Thank you. I believe also this event is part of a series of the European Food Forum on protein. And then today is about animal protein, so don't hijack the topic either. I see a question on the right side. Please introduce yourself and then go for it.
I can add the question to what we have heard and what you asked concerning the valuing of this. I mean, it's very obvious that livestock is an important part of this circular economy. But nevertheless, the question is, who is able to count exactly the footprint of the different parts? Let's say, for example, if you talk about Bouvea, if you talk about other parts of reducing footprint, this was very in general. You talked about it in general, but so can you count it exactly so that we can have a better argumentation for the people who decide about that? So if you, for example, if we decide about feed additives, that could be a very interesting question that we show exactly reducing footprint, and that is might be a decision maker.
The feeling the question was going towards you, Bart.
Yes, I think I should answer that one. So the reduction of Bouvea is studied in more than 100 studies. The methane, let's say, burps, because cows burp methane out, is measured in cells and in green feeds, so relatively sound technology there. And for other measures as well, these methodologies are a good indicator of what the reduction of, in this case, methane is. So can you measure it? Yes. The ton CO2 per year that I indicated is a relatively good indicator or number that accounts for nearly all cows. Should you measure it all the time? No, that's not possible. You don't check your, let's say, your catalyst in your car neither every day. But when a technology advances like this and it is tested like this, I'm pretty sure, and I'm a scientist myself, that the reduction is what the scientists have told me. It is integrated in a whole range of tools, like for instance in the Netherlands you have the kringloopwijzer, where the amount of feed is introduced, and then the amount of reduction is calculated from that. In Germany, you have the LFL doing on a carbon calculator, and these methodologies are relatively a safe indication on what the reduction potential is. So when you feed it, the reduction is there.
Thank you. I was thinking about bringing the commission in one more time, as I felt you were left short of time, maybe. So I think indeed that today, it's not so much polarization, but you do see, okay, I'll finish my question. We do see a bit of a division of views. So you're sitting in the middle, of course. How are you able to balance this out in this livestock work stream and the work you have to do?
Thanks for the question. I think it's more a question of having a holistic view on our society and of how we want to make sure that the generations to come still have a planet to live on, still have food to eat, still enjoy rural life if this is their choice. So it's more looking at it from a holistic perspective. Indeed, there is a place for fruit and vegetables, for beans, for livestock. We have the chance of that diversity that we are enjoying every day on our plate as citizens, as consumers, and as decision makers, what we need to do. And I think I would come back to the question that was just asked before. Do we have a way to calculate all that, to make that comparable as well? So we heard the reply for Bovaer and how they do, and also the different mechanisms in the Netherlands or Germany. And indeed, it's very difficult to find one method that allow to compare cultured meat, standard meat, higher animal welfare products as meat or milk, to compare the footprint, to compare the energy intake, to compare the benefits for society, etc. So it's a true question. So what we do in the livestock workstream is to try to put everybody around the table so that we can listen to everything that happens, and hopefully we can make the best emerge out of it. So this is a bit taking back the pioneering feeling of our founding fathers. So really to try to make Europe show its best on this very particular aspect. Feeding the population, the next generation, the population ahead is a very complex thing to do. And from public authorities' point of view, we look at it thoroughly, of course, and there is nothing that is discarded by ideology or whatever. We have to find what really makes it in the end.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have one last question of the first panel. I believe you had a question, hopefully not for the Commission, because you just spoke. Go ahead.
For the Commission, also for some of the other speakers. So my name is Megan Sapp. I'm the Advocacy Director for the European Alliance for Regenerative Agriculture. I am a pastured poultry farmer, amongst other things. I teach plant grazing to farmers all over northern Spain and elsewhere. So I work with a lot of ruminant farmers. And I'm a bit baffled about this concept of providing a feed ingredient to reduce methane emissions from ruminants, when we understand that those excess emissions come from basically cows having a tummy ache, right? Ruminants are designed to eat forage. They're not designed to eat starches and grains. And so when they eat things that doesn't make them feel good, they belch more. And I think we're also missing the key piece of sorry, I always mess up the word, methanogenesis bacteria, soil-borne bacteria that convert methane into CO2, which is part of the natural carbon cycle of ruminants of all classes on the land. And so I feel like we're trying to like force a square peg into a round hole. So my question, because I know this is about questions, my question is if in the very pretty graphic that you had on the role of livestock in the ecosystem or in the food system, there's plenty of farmers who produce like that, but they're still the minority. How can through the livestock work stream and how can through the next CAP can we shift towards more of that kind of production instead of trying to force animals, especially from an animal welfare point of view, into being what they're not? Thank you.
Yes, I suspect it's for the Commission to respond. I think we come exactly from the same point of view. So the starting point is there are many virtuous farming systems around us. So let's give them a forum where they can be expressed, be showcased, and inspire others. So you have basically two extremes in life. Either you inspire others and you try the voluntary way, or you impose on others. And we've decided we don't impose. We make it grow from the ground. So indeed, in the livestock workstream, we are hearing the example that you have just made. And as we have everybody around the table, so authorities, member states authorities, the stakeholders of the supply chain, scientists, researchers, NGOs, everybody is there. So the idea is that everywhere where this is possible, and that's where I come with this territorial diversity, then let's make each one inspire the other. And there is one model that will inspire maybe somebody at the other end of Europe, and they had maybe not thought about it. And other models will inspire others. So indeed, we are doing that. Do we do something for grazing? Let's say if I want to schematize what you asked in the future CAP, yes, we do. There is now there will be in future, after the Parliament and the Council have made their own text, there will be also the payment of direct support to farmers, taking account of grazing, of grass grow, etc. That's one of the elements new in the future CAP.
Okay. With that, I would like to conclude the first panel, because now we're going to move on to the second one dedicated to the animal protein in the human nutrition context. So first speaker is here with us today. So Dr. Andrea Fuss, expert in rural development, adult education and household economics, studied ecotrophology, which I needed to look up. It's a branch of nutritional science and food science, typically German, I understand. But currently serving as the Deputy Secretary General of the Bavarian Farmers Association. You will speak in German, I understand, so we'll have you have interpretation ready. And please reminder, 5 minutes per speaker. There you go. The floor is yours.
Ja, vielen Dank, Herr Vorsitzender. Ich möchte mich auch zuerst ganz herzlich für die Einladung bedanken. Bitte um vielleicht die Einblendung der Präsentation, die ich mitgebracht habe, wenn es möglich ist. Genau, die Bedeutung von tierischem Eiweiß für die menschliche Ernährung. Sie dürfen gerne zur nächsten Folie übergehen. Was mir wichtig ist, ist, dass alle Organisationen, die Ernährungsempfehlungen aussprechen, vielleicht die nächste Folie bitte, jawohl, vielen Dank, dass die alle die Wichtigkeit einer ausreichenden Proteinversorgung in den Mittelpunkt stellen. Sowohl die World Health Organization als auch die EFSA, als auch bei uns in Deutschland die Deutsche Gesellschaft für Ernährung. Also dass Protein wichtig ist, ist allen Organisationen wichtig und auch schließt auch tierisches Protein ein. Nächste Folie bitte. Wenn wir uns die Proteinzufuhr anschauen, dann haben wir zwei Punkte, die wir betrachten müssen. Zum einen den Proteingehalt, das ist eine quantitative Angabe, Und die sagt aber nichts über die Qualität aus. Und wir haben zum anderen den Dias. Das ist eine qualitative Bewertung der Proteinqualität. Und da geht es letztendlich darum, wie das Protein verdaut werden kann und auch wie die Anzahl der unentbehrlichen, der essentiellen Aminosäuren aufgenommen werden. Und ich denke, diese beiden Punkte muss man einfach im Blick behalten. Zum einen die Quantität an Protein und zum anderen die Qualität an Protein. Und da möchte ich gerne zur nächsten Folie kommen. Das ist eine etwas komplexere Grafik, aber ich möchte gerne das bisschen gegenüberstellen. Wenn Sie sich die X-Achse anschauen, dann sehen Sie, dass die blauen Balken tierische Lebensmittel darstellen und die grünen Balken stellen pflanzliche Lebensmittel dar. Die Balken geben jeweils den Proteingehalt an. Der ist zum Beispiel bei Fleisch jetzt niedriger als bei Soja, um das herauszugreifen. Aber wenn man dann eben die Proteinqualität anschaut, dann sieht man, dass bei allen tierischen Lebensmitteln die Proteinqualität, also dieser Dias, deutlich höher ist als bei den pflanzlichen Lebensmitteln. Damit komme ich zur nächsten Folie, bitte. Was sind die Vorteile tierischer Proteine in der menschlichen Ernährung? Also zum einen, das Aminosäurespektrum ist wichtig, dass die tierischen Proteine alle essentiellen Aminosäuren in einer ausreichenden Menge liefern. Sie haben eine hohe biologische Wertigkeit. Das ist sozusagen der Dias, den ich schon angesprochen habe. Also tierische Proteine können besonders effektiv in körpereigenes Eiweiß umgewandelt werden, deutlich besser als pflanzliche Proteine. Sie tragen zum Muskelaufbau und zur Regeneration bei, zum Beispiel im Bereich des Muskelaufbaus oder der sportlichen Leistungsfähigkeit oder auch wenn man Belastungen hat, dann kann man sich da besser regenerieren. Dafür sind tierische Proteine von Vorteil. Und sie versorgen außerdem mit weiteren Mikronährstoffen. Tierische Proteine kommen selten allein, sondern sie gehen zum Beispiel einher mit Vitamin B12, was essentiell ist für den menschlichen Körper, oder auch bestimmten Mineralstoffen wie Eisen und Zink. Und was auch ein großer Vorteil ist von tierischen Proteinen, ist, dass sie den Blutzuckerspiegel stabilisieren und eine hohe Sättigungswirkung haben und dadurch eben nicht zu diesen Blutzuckerspitzen führen, die vielleicht manche anderen Proteine haben. Genau, dann möchte ich bitten um die nächste Folie. Ich möchte es noch einmal gegenüberstellen. Tierische versus pflanzliche Proteinquellen. Was haben die beiden Proteinquellen für Vorteile? Beim tierischen Protein sind es eben die hohen Dias-Werte, die ich schon angesprochen habe, und dass sie eben einhergehen mit gut verfügbaren Mikronährstoffen wie Vitamin B12, Vitamin D, Eisen oder Zink. Bei pflanzlichen Proteinquellen ist der Vorteil, dass es einfach gute Ballaststoffquellen sind und dass sie einhergehen mit sekundären Pflanzenstoffen, die eben besonders bei den pflanzlichen Proteinen eine Rolle spielen. Also beide haben Vorteile, das wollte ich da einfach nochmal gegenüberstellen. Genau, dann gerne zur nächsten Folie bitte. Was sind die Folgen eines Proteinmangels? Das sehen Sie hier: Muskelschwund, Wundheilungsstörungen, Ödeme, Haarausfall, Wachstumsstörungen bei Kindern oder auch ein erhöhtes Risiko für Infekte können Folgen eines Proteinmangels sein. Aber man muss auch sagen, in den westlichen Ländern gibt es keine echten klinischen Proteinmangelerkrankungen, außer in ganz besonderen Situationen, zum Beispiel wenn jemand eine Essstörung hat oder wenn jemand an einer chronischen Krankheit leidet oder wenn jemand wirklich eine sehr restriktive Diät wählt. Aber ansonsten ist eigentlich Proteinmangel bei uns in den westlichen Ländern kein Thema. Zur nächsten Folie gerne bitte. Es stellt sich ja immer wieder die Frage, wie sieht es mit vegetarischer oder veganer Ernährung aus? Die Studien zeigen, dass auch Vegetarier und Veganer im Schnitt ausreichend Protein aufnehmen. Meist etwas weniger aber als die Mischköstler, aber sie bewegen sich im Bereich der Empfehlungen. Das sieht man hier auch, empfohlen sind 10–20% der Energiezufuhr über Protein abzudecken, und bei Mischköstlern sind es ungefähr 17% der Proteinzufuhr und bei den Veganern 13% der Proteinzufuhr. Also es ist im normalen Rahmen. Das eigentliche Risiko bei der veganen Ernährung ist eher die zu geringe Zufuhr von Mikronährstoffen, das habe ich schon angesprochen, wie eben zum Beispiel Vitamin B12, Vitamin D, Eisen, Zink oder Jod. Dann gerne die nächste Folie, bitte. Ich möchte noch kurz eingehen auf die Proteinempfehlungen für Kinder und Senioren. Für Kinder und Senioren sind die Empfehlungen, was den Proteingehalt, die tägliche Zufuhr anbelangt, etwas erhöht, nämlich 0,8 bis 1 Gramm, bei den Senioren 1 Gramm pro Kilogramm Körpergewicht pro Tag, was empfohlen ist. Dann möchte ich nochmal zur nächsten Folie kommen und möchte herausstellen die Vorteile der tierischen Lebensmittel in der Ernährung von Kindern und Senioren. Ganz kurz, nächste Folie bitte. Bei den tierischen Lebensmitteln Vorteile in der Kinderernährung, eben die hohe biologische Wertigkeit, die ich schon angesprochen habe, wichtig für die Blutbildung, gerade auch Fleisch, um eben gut verwertbares Eisen auch zu haben. Die Nervenentwicklung und die Bildung von roten Blutkörperchen, dafür ist Vitamin B12 entscheidend. Die Entwicklung von Gehirn- und Sehvermögen, die Omega-3-Fettsäuren, die eben zum Beispiel in tierischen Lebensmitteln wie Fisch enthalten sind. Und dann eben die Milch, die eben das Knochenwachstum fördert und die Zahngesundheit. Und dann komme ich noch kurz zu den Vorteilen für die Seniorenernährung. Nächste Folie bitte. Da ist es ebenfalls der Erhalt von Muskelmasse und Kraft. Bei Senioren lässt ja oft die Muskelmasse nach im Alter. Die hohe Verdaulichkeit, weil Senioren oft nicht mehr so viel essen, sondern eher kleinere Portionen zu sich nehmen. Auch, dass sie oft traditionelle Ernährungsgewohnheiten pflegen, wo eben das Fleisch und die tierischen Produkte einfach eine entsprechende Rolle immer gespielt haben in der Ernährung. Die Unterstützung der Knochengesundheit, wenn man an das Thema Osteoporose denkt, gut verfügbare Mikronährstoffe habe ich schon bereits angesprochen und der Schutz vor Mangelernährung. Und deshalb komme ich zu meiner letzten Folie. Ich glaube, es ist wichtig, von klein bis groß, dass tierisches Protein wirklich viele Vorteile bietet und wir sollten es nicht leichtfertig aufgeben, tierisches Protein zu uns zu nehmen. Vielen Dank.
Danke sehr. Yeah, I think very complete presentation, complete picture, gold standard in protein, like well-being animal protein. I will take us to the next speaker. And actually, all 4 speakers in this panel are from the scientific community. And the next, again, Professor Alice Stanton, connected online if all goes well. Clinician scientist, current roles, Professor of Cardiovascular Therapeutics and consultant for healthy, sustainable diet. You're on numerous committees, coalitions, and councils, authored over 150 peer-reviewed published articles and delivered many lectures concerning evidence-based healthy diets from sustainable food systems. So today you have a +1. Professor Stanton, can you hear us? Yeah, I can see you.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. I'm just looking for the screen to.
We share from this side the slides, I think.
Are you seeing something there?
I see no slides yet, but we've been sharing the slides from the organization side so far. And if you want the next slide, if you want the next slide, you just say next slide when I see movement. Okay.
Is that okay now?
Can you go into presentation mode?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Very many thanks for the invitation to address this group. And what I'd like to discuss with you is what will be the impact on human health of a diet with significantly less animal source foods or protein. And I think we're all familiar with these kind of newspaper headlines and articles over the last 40 years. It started with eggs, and that's been debunked. Moved on to dairy products, that's been debunked. And the last 10 years, these kind of headlines, meat is dead, have focused on red meat and on processed meats. And it's not only the general public press, it's also scientific publications, policy documents, and dietary guidelines that have some of them have recommended dramatic reductions, or indeed some of them have recommended total exclusion of all animal source foods.
Professor Stanton, we cannot see the slides anymore. I don't know if you moved something.
No.
So it's on the screen now.
Ah, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you move to the next slide, that'll be great. Yeah, so it's not only newspaper articles, it's also scientific publications, policy documents, and dietary guidelines that have made these recommendations. Next slide. But there's a problem, as alluded to by the previous speaker. Now, I couldn't understand all of that because I couldn't get the translation service working, but I'm pretty certain that the previous speaker has covered that animal source foods are the top sources of commonly lacking nutrients, as illustrated in the left-hand panel. But I'd like you to look at the right-hand panel. And what it shows is that if you reduce below 30% of calories coming from animal source foods, you get increasing deficiencies in both vitamins and in key minerals, such as B12, vitamin A, and such as calcium, iron, and zinc. And again, as spoken by the previous speaker, the implications are greatest for vulnerable populations, such as women, children, and the elderly. And next slide, please. Moving on to the other impact of food, many of these publications and policy documents have suggested that animal source foods are actually causing cancers, heart attacks, and strokes. Such as the statement that each Frankfurter sandwich eaten results in 35 minutes of life lost, or reducing dairy intake from 3 portions a day down to less than 1 would increase life expectancy by 1 year, or that 1.9 million deaths were associated with excessive consumption of dairy and red and processed meat in the Lancet Countdown on Health and Climate Change. Next slide, please. It's important that we realize where the evidence is coming from, and nearly all of these publications and guidelines rely on one source, the Global Burden of Disease collaborators. Next slide, please. What I've shown here are the 2017 and the 2019 analysis for dietary risks and deaths from the Global Burden of Disease collaborators, which is an international group headquartered in University of Washington, Seattle. On top are the excesses, and the big ones are diets excessive in calories or diets excessive in salt. And the big deficiencies are child and maternal malnutrition and diets that are low in grains, fruits, seeds, vegetables, omega-3 fatty acids. Next pointer. The Global Burden of Disease collaborators did acknowledge that milk and dairy products actually did save lives, but it was a gross underestimate. Next slide, please. They only counted the protection afforded by dairy towards colorectal cancer, huge reductions in colorectal cancer with drinking the equivalent of 3 portions of dairy a day. They omitted the protection that dairy provides against overweight and obesity, one of our biggest problems in dietary health, with knock-on implications for type 2 diabetes mellitus. They also didn't include the protection against heart attacks and strokes. And in fact, the PURE study has shown with eating or consuming 2 or more full-fat dairy servings, you get a 25% reduction in total mortality. Next slide. Returning to red meat, if you look at in the blue columns, and you can barely see it, the 25,000 deaths that were caused by excessive red meat consumption in 2017, and compare it to the red column, which represents almost 900,000 deaths. So this is a 36-fold increase in the estimates of deaths attributed to unprocessed red meat between 2017 and 2019, without providing any evidence whatsoever. The Global Burden of Disease collaborators merely said, from the first mouthful, colon cancer, breast cancer, heart attacks, strokes, and diabetic deaths were caused by unprocessed red meat. Next slide. A group of us were unhappy with that. We actually sent a letter to the Lancet and said, you know, is this 30-fold increase in the estimates, is this reliable? And also, what would happen to the deficiency deaths and illnesses that would occur if we said that all red meat needs to be excluded from the human diet? The answer we got eventually was that global burden of disease collaborators did not consider deficiency illnesses. Furthermore, they said, we may have got it a little bit wrong. In fact, red meat doesn't cause strokes and may not cause any heart attacks. We'll get it better next time. We were very pleased when other groups came in behind us and said, this is not acceptable. Immediate corrections must occur. Next slide. And indeed, the global burden of disease collaborators did actually publish their evidence in the following year in Nature Medicine, and there were very different conclusions. No or very weak evidence that unprocessed red meat is associated with any increased risk. Evidence is insufficient to make any strong or conclusive recommendations. The optimal intake of unprocessed red meat is not 0 and could be as high as 200 grams a day, which actually, that would be very, very excessive. Okay, next slide. My final evidence slide. I think it's important that we take a whole dietary approach, such as that taken by the prospective urban-rural epidemiology study. This focuses on the positive effects of 6 food groups, so fruit, vegetables, legumes, nuts, fish, and dairy. And greater adherence to these 6 foods is strongly associated with lower risks of death and major cardiovascular events, such as heart attacks and strokes. Importantly, each of the 6 foods made a similar protective contribution. And also importantly, when unprocessed red meat is included in the score or in the analysis, the results are similar. And that actually indicates that unprocessed red meat has a neutral effect on mortality and cardiovascular death when it's included as part of a healthy eating pattern. Next slide. So I think we need to remember what is the definition of a healthy diet. A healthy diet helps to protect against both malnutrition and also against non-communicable diseases. Dramatic reductions in animal source foods, as advised by many plant-based diets, will worsen already prevalent micronutrient and protein deficiencies worldwide. Animal source foods and chronic diseases, what's the relationship? Any possible absolute adverse effects of red and processed meat consumption are very small and uncertain. Poultry, meat, and eggs appear to have no impact, and dairy and seafood are associated with protections against obesity, cardiovascular events, brain ill health, and some cancers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also, thank you for giving us insight into this. It's almost a battle in the academic world to make sure that all claims are scientifically backed up. You're putting in your part. I will take us now to the next speaker, and I believe, is she connected online or she is Dr. Sarah Erasmus? I haven't seen her yet. I'm looking on screen. Where is it? Online? Yeah, okay, online. So currently assistant professor in the Food Quality and Design Group at the Wageningen University and Research in the Netherlands. She has a special interest in meat science, combining this with the themes of meat quality and food supply chain integrity. And I believe you will address the intersection between nutrition and sustainability. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anton, for the introduction. Can you hear me well?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, fantastic. So first of all, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the European Food Forum for this opportunity to give my intervention on animal protein in human nutrition. So I'm a meat scientist, and this intervention will be from that perspective. Next slide, please. Okay, so the story of human evolution should not be new to you. Our brains and our intellect developed due to the inclusion.
Maybe can you move a bit closer to the microphone? It's actually not perfect, a bit soft.
Okay, better?
Or speak louder.
I'll speak louder. Okay, so our brains and intellect developed due to the inclusion of energy-rich animal proteins. And it is vital to stress that these animal proteins do not only offer bioavailable proteins, but also crucial non-protein nutrients, such as essential micronutrients, omega-3 fatty acids, bioactive compounds, while also organ meats are rich sources of vitamin A and D, but also iron, zinc, folate, selenium, and choline. So that being said, often the dialogue of animal-based versus then plant-based is centered around the consumption of red meat or processed red meat. And yet in reality, there's a wide variety of species that provide us with valuable animal proteins. Also, everything of the animal is utilized, so from the meat to the organs and also other byproducts. So regarding processed meat products, this means that making high-value meat actually affordable by using less desirable cuts and also byproducts, and by using methods then to improve efficiency, extend shelf life, and also reduce waste, ultimately lowering the cost for consumers, but then also increasing profit margins for producers. Please click. Yes, so that brings me then to the question, in context now of the value of animal protein, why would we want to restrict animal protein in our modern diets? Next slide, please. Okay. This is largely due to the sustainability discourse, and yes, we cannot argue that animals do not contribute to carbon emissions. Please click. Yes, thank you. I would like, yeah. So having the carbon tunnel vision, as the graphic shows you, this graphic is by Jan Kunitsko, and it just means that potential gains in climate impact reduction could lead to trade-offs related to other variables affected by agricultural change. So, and this should be avoided when we want to attempt a sustainable dietary transition, especially since this debate on what constitutes an optimally nourishing diet for humans and the environment itself is far from being settled. Next slide, please. So with the focus then on health and nutrition, the positive nutritional aspects of meat consumption within a diverse and healthy diet include the bioavailability of proteins and micronutrients, preventing stunting and other forms of malnutrition, but also preventing iron deficiencies and contributing to cognitive development, verbal ability, activity level, and behavioral in children. And the latter has been proven by various intervention studies, but also a good example, and also the example that I have on the slide for you, is how restricting animal proteins could lead to micronutrient deficiencies at population level. And so this is demonstrated with the Eat Lancet's planetary health diet. And to actually address then these deficiencies means that we need to increase the animal source protein from 12 to 26%, while then also decrease plant source protein from 23 to 13%. Next slide, please. So you might now ask, but does consuming meat not cause unfavorable health outcomes? So indeed, these concerns sprout from epidemiological studies linking high meat product consumption with an increased risk of non-communicable diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases. Yet these studies are plagued by inaccuracies, memory-based errors, specifically in relation to observational studies relying on self-reported dietary data, and also biases which undermines the reliability then of their conclusions and going against the principles of evidence-based medicine. And this warrants a call for caution with the interpretation of conclusions from these studies. Please click. Yeah, so I want to stress just that also the meat type is crucial, as consuming white meat and fish seemingly does not pose these increased risk of cardiovascular disease or for various cancers, and may even have neutral or protective findings or associations. So therefore, avoidance of animal source foods that are associated with benefits then have to be also considered as a suboptimal dietary design. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is my last slide, and it's on what is needed for the future. I would say first to make animal proteins part of the solution and not the problem. That is would be a great start. And then because we know that suppressing livestock-based systems and proposing its replacement with plant-based will likely only lead to damaging trade-offs, which could include the likes of chronic diseases, malnutrition, and cognitive development. And this is especially important for socio-demographic groups with elevated needs. And it also goes against the fundamentals of a sustainable food system, which is to deliver food security and nutrition, as it would then decrease that accessibility, but also affordability of high quality proteins, like the example I've given you also with the making of processed meat products. So the future should focus on diversification and the complementary roles of both animal and plant-based proteins. Not that they're in opposition, but they are truly complementary for healthy diets within our planetary boundaries. And also media, academic and policy circles should have balanced communications and present high certainty evidence to improve consumer literacy in the end. Thank you so much for the 5 minutes. I hope everything is good. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I think another word of caution was made with abrupt reductions in animal proteins, but I think also a key nice takeaway message that the complementarity between plant and animal protein is something that we should strive for. I'm going to take us to the very last speaker of today, of the panelists. So Dr. Sander Biesbroek is with us today here, Assistant Professor in Healthy and Sustainable Diets, Chair of the Group Global Nutrition and Division on Human Nutrition and Health at Wageningen University as well, trained nutritionist and epidemiologist. His work is on the edge of nutrition science, environmental impact analysis, mathematical optimization, protein quality, and modeling of co-benefits and trade-offs of the diet transition towards healthy and sustainable diets. Dr. Biesbroek, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you for the kind introduction, Anton, and for the invitation to present our work here. I'm not a chair, part of the chair of Global Nutrition. So my topic is protein in a healthy and sustainable diet. So as a nutritionist, we consider the dietary intake, but of course nowadays we also have to consider the environmental impact. And there's several approaches that you can take in reducing the environmental impact of the diet. One is overconsumption. It was already addressed that we overconsume, and that results in overweight and all related non-communicable disease risks. So on average, in, for example, a Dutch cohort, they found that per day, 100 to 200 kilocalories per day were overconsumed by that population. So that's roughly 5 to 10% of foods that we eat, that we basically do not need. So that would be a reduction in 5 to 10% in environmental impact if we just cut down on the foods that we basically don't need. Then another one is food waste. Of course, a lot of food that's being produced makes it to the consumer, but ends up being thrown in the trash, or you just cook too much, because of course we all want to be seen as a good host. We want to make nice food plates, but of course this also results in food waste. On average, this is also 10% of the foods at the consumer level. So of course also foods get lost at the supermarkets or sometimes also at the farm. And another one is also changing what we eat. So this diet transition, or sometimes also use the protein transition. I personally like it to call it the diet transition because it's more than just protein. It was also addressed by previous speakers that when changing protein, you also have to consider the other micronutrients, vitamin B12, iron, calcium, that go along with these changes in your diet. So having the full picture really is important. But of course, this talk was about protein. So let's dive into protein. Next slide. It was already addressed a bit by Dr. Fuss, the protein quality. So the recommended daily allowance, which is enough for 97.5% of a healthy population, is 0.80 grams per kilogram body weight. And the estimated average requirement of protein is 0.66 gram per day. That's enough for around 50% of your population. Next slide. Of course, this is per gram of body weight. So if we just kind of recalculate 70 grams of body weight, you need around 60 grams of protein to be adequate, right? Not excessive in sports or activities, but like for general healthy, like we have been sitting here probably all day, pretty much you're solid on this intake. Next slide, please. But also address protein, what's on your package, and that you might count if you have enough protein is not the whole story. Part of it is not digested. That's the first part. And then the second part is that the amino acid profile needs to be matching our requirements. Otherwise, parts of these amino acids cannot be used and are then stored either as fat or oxidated directly as well, so for energy, and they cannot be stored. So, of course, we know that animal proteins have a higher digestibility. They're on average 95% to 100% digestible, whereas plant proteins are, depending on the source, a bit between 70 and 90%. With soy, Dr. Fuchs also showed it with the clear benefit of high digestibility as well as a high protein quality. Next slide, please. So, but do we actually have a problem with protein intake in Europe? This publication came out last week. We investigated the European food consumption data from EFSA and calculated what their protein intake was. On the y-axis, you see the protein per kilogram body weight, and then the top line is the RDA, so the highest level required for almost the whole population. For most of these countries, the protein intake is well above the 0.8 gram per kilogram body weight. And in red, the red part is the animal-based protein, and in blue is the plant-based protein. We might have chosen different colors, but on average, it's 70 to 80% of animal proteins. So that's kind of the ratio currently. Next slide, please. So the slide above was, or the graph above is crude protein, so what's being listed on your package, and then the one in yellow is if we would consider the protein quality. So we incorporated protein quality, the amino acid profile, and then, of course, because we have some losses in digestibility and the protein quality, it goes down a bit. But really, for this healthy European population, there is no issue in total protein intake. Next slide, please. This is a very busy graph, but what we did, because we also know that because we cannot store protein, we have to consider the moment your protein is being consumed. So there is an approximate time window, which is debated, but still we chose the most strict approach that you have to consume foods within a meal specifically in order for foods to be complementary. So you will eat some vegetables together with maybe a cereal or some other type of product, maybe part of meat, and then combined, you have this amino acid pool coming from your meal. And what we found was that in only 20% of the meals, on average, there is a amino acid deficiency. So it's lacking in 1 or 2 amino acids. So in most of the dishes, apparently, we can do a pretty good deal in really having a good amino acid profile that matches our requirement. And then the only most important factor is we have to correct for the digestibility factor in order to know if we have an adequate protein consumption. Next slide, please. So, of course, what we eat impacts our health directly, but also, of course, what we eat impacts sustainability, and sustainability issues will also impact our health on the long term. This is an overview of a graph that summarizes evidence based on observational studies, relative risk of mortality on the x-axis. And then in the vertical axis, you have the relative environmental impact. So it's a combination of different environmental indicators, greenhouse gas emission, land use, eutrophication, nitrogen, for example. And then you can kind of plot different food groups and see how they score. Next slide, please. So in green on the left bottom, there are foods that are beneficial for non-communicable disease risk and have a very low environmental impact. Of course, vegetables, whole grains, legumes are there. And then in the middle, I think next slide. Yeah, it clusters the foods a bit better. Then in the center, you have foods that have neutral health effects, for example, dairy or fish. And then on the top right, you have foods with a negative health impact and a very high environmental impact. So the base of this graph was drawn from a publication, and I know that, for example, for dairy, we know it has more beneficial health impacts, for example, for colorectal cancer and diabetes risk. But it's kind of the order of magnitude of the different products doesn't really change. And then to the next slide, please. So in our publication, we added to this table that it's not only about environmental impact, it's not only about non-communicable disease risk, but you should also consider the nutrient density of the different food groups. And then I don't think I have a next slide, but kind of as an overall message is like it's often difficult to compare foods on a food item level. We want to compare environmental impact. We want to compare nutritional composition and non-communicable disease risk. But in the end, we eat the foods together in a whole diet. So in the end, we have to sum it up and see if this dietary pattern that comes out with balanced food variety is both healthy for us as well as for the environment. I give the floor back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Biesbroek. Very insightful. I think it shows that not all proteins are created equal. It's just not all animal products are created equally. But it also reminded me of our sector, animal nutrition. In the feed business, we're all about precise nutrients at the right time, the right animal stage. And then we reduce the crude animal protein. It's all balanced in animal proteins. But then as humans, we tend to kind of throw it on one pile and consume it without too much care about the minimizing the excretion of nutrients in that sense. So we've gone through all four speakers for the second panel. There is still a little bit time, I would say 5 minutes for a Q&A. So I would very much welcome any questions from the floor. I am doing my helicopter. Everybody is maybe already tired. Yeah, now you get a second chance, Hermann Josef, to introduce yourself.
Hermann Josef from the German Feed Association. I'm not tired, but I was very careful when I saw the last chart. Can you show this back? Because I cannot understand why processed or unprocessed red meat should have such a high risk for mortality. So you said us that this was literature you collected for that. Did I understand it on that way, or because I think we have to value this what is published on this, and so we should make it very objective.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. I think red meat is on there, and I think in our additional paper we also commented on it that the relative risk of both red meat as well as dairy should have been different than in the original publication that we responded to. So we are not the authors of the first publication, but in order of magnitude, red meat and especially overconsumption of red meat has a negative health impact on the long term. It's just not as high as they put it here. I mean, for unprocessed red meat, it's 10% higher risk of all-cause mortality, and then you are talking about it's always based on epidemiological studies, high versus low consumers. And then the high consumers are in the magnitude of 150 grams and more. So also, for example, in the Dutch dietary guidelines, we have red meat, unprocessed red meat up until 70 grams per day, for example. So that's, I think, also the picture that it should be plant-forward diets, not animal-restricted diets in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah. You're back again, second term as well.
Thanks. No, thank you so much for bringing in all this really interesting research into the nutrition side. It's starting to become more of a conversation about food as medicine. So using good diets, good products as preventative medicine or preventative treatment. But usually it's focused on fruit and vegetables. I'm wondering if there's any conversation going on in the food as medicine discussion regarding meat. Is that anything we know about? No? Okay, maybe it's something we need to talk about.
If I
maybe
could,
speaker. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to invite you.
Yeah, no, I think there is ongoing discussion, particularly in the area of deficiencies. So a healthy diet needs to do two things. We need to consider deficiencies, and deficiencies aren't just blood levels. They have real impacts on childhood stunting, on anemia, particularly in women of childbearing age, and on elderly fragility. And I think it's relevant, the previous question as well. In that plot, in actual fact, the position of dairy being put alongside a neutral effect on human health, absolutely not. It has very positive effects. I don't think fish was adequately acknowledged as having positive effects. And eggs, that's an outdated material. Now the evidence is that eggs 1 a day is certainly a great source of food and has no impact on heart attacks or strokes. Likewise, the position of red meat is probably neutral when consumed as part of a healthy diet. And there are question marks about processed meats because all of processed meat is put together. And I think we should consider that many of the processed meats are just processed, minimally processed, to optimize carcass use, to optimize shelf life, and they're not part of the ultra-processed foods. We are increasingly aware of the dangers of excessive ultra-processed food consumption, and it is highly likely that some of the risks that we've seen with processed meats actually are not due to the meat component of the meal, but are due to the total burden of ultra-processed food consumption, which in the West is accounting for more than 50% of calories in most Western countries. And that's a huge problem. The dangers of processed meat, and particularly of red meat, unprocessed red meat, are minuscule by comparison with the likely dangers of excessive, and I say excessive consumption. We all can have some junk food occasionally, but the dangers of excessive ultra-processed food consumption. So I think there is ongoing discussions about the nutritional value of red meat and of all other animal source foods, particularly in the prevention of deficiencies.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to respond to that? Any of the other online speakers? Otherwise, I think we're gonna, oh, I couldn't see you there. Go ahead.
Is my mic on? Yeah. So my question would be for you, Professor Stanton. Sorry, Michela Bisoni from Plant-Based Foods Europe. It's the trade association that represents meat and dairy alternatives, plant-based again. So I have a question for you, Professor Stanton, because you mentioned that a dramatic reduction in animal source food could worsen existing micronutrients and protein deficiencies. I hope I get the quote right. But that's pretty radical. In Europe, the vegan population is still quite small. Vegetarians still consume some animal-based foods, and flexitarians still make up, let's say, the big bulk of the European population, besides, obviously, those who consume quite a lot meat and dairy products. So I'm just wondering, how do you see actually the role of a flexitarian diet in advancing all the health and sustainability objectives at the EU level? And also, what would be actually the nutritional impact of such a flexitarian diet in light of what you also mentioned? Thank you very much.
I think that's a really important question. I think it is about balance, and it depends on what we mean by a flexitarian diet. If you mean the Eat Lancet diet, that's been shown by some of the authors of the original Eat Lancet publication, that actually, with only 13% of calories coming from animal source foods, that would result in key nutritional deficiencies. We really need, without supplementation, and very knowledgeable supplementation, we really need at least 25% of our calories, or at least 50% of our protein coming from animal source foods. That's what the evidence shows. Now, absolutely, a vegan, someone who wants to follow a vegan diet can do it very well with very careful supplementation of vitamins, minerals, and with very careful balancing of where their protein is coming from in plant sources of protein, so that they get all of the essential amino acids. And yes, they have to consider omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids as well.
Thank you very much. with that, I would like to conclude this second panel session and move to the final statements from our distinguished co-hosting MEPs. I don't know if one of you wants to take the floor first, counting that you want to make a final statement, closing remarks.
Thank you very much for all our speakers and to all of you for the helpful contributions during this debate. What we have here today confirms one key message. Nutrition policy must be balanced, science-based and inclusive. Animal protein is not an opponent of sustainability. It is part of a diverse and resilient food system that can nourish Europe's citizens while supporting our cultural landscapes and farming communities. We must ensure that future EU policy reflects this balance by recognizing the essential nutritional role of animal protein, by supporting continued innovation and livestock farming, and by enabling farmers to deliver both food security and environmental benefits. As legislators, we must design policies that are practical and balanced, strengthen consumer trust, and ensure that both animal and plant proteins can contribute to healthy and sustainable diets in Europe. I'm grateful to all of you who have taken the time to ensure in this dialogue the insights from today will feed into our ongoing work in the Parliament and with the Commission. Thank you very much, and I wish you a pleasant afternoon. And now I give to Stefan Köhler.
Yeah, thank you. And first, I'd like to thank all the participants and especially the speakers for their comments and the knowledge they give to us. I was very happy about that it's not white and black, so we have to see it in a holistic way. And for me as a farmer, animal protein must be, or has to be part of a normal and regular nutrition. Farmers always innovate and change things. We have heard from scientific side that we are still working to reduce the methane, especially for cattle. And I think we are on a good way, but as politicians, we shouldn't, or we should avoid to tell the people what to eat or not to eat. I think, or my inner belief is that everybody can decide how he wants to finish his body. And for that, I found it was a very interesting and clear discussion. And thank you very much for all sharing us here this afternoon. And then I can finish the round, or?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here, and I wish you all a nice afternoon.